It was supposed to be a normal morning on the ranch. The sun was rising over the pasture, the air was crisp, and my horses were doing what they do best, being loud. But then, I saw her. Mrs. Karen Jenkins, a neighbor with too much time on her hands and a vendetta against anything that wasn't a neatly manicured lawn. That morning, she did something so unexpected, so out of line, it changed everything for me. She sprayed my horse. Yes, you heard that right, for being too loud. But what Karen didn't know was that this simple act of malice was about to trigger a chain of events no one could have predicted. A chain of events that would put the local HOA under federal investigation. I'm not one for drama, but you don't just mess with my horses and expect no consequences. I had a plan, and it wasn't just about getting back at her. Oh no. It was bigger. It was about making sure Karen and her HOA cronies learned one very important lesson. Never underestimate someone who has nothing to lose but everything to gain. So, buckle up. This is going to get crazy. But first, let me tell you how it all started. I had just moved to this small, quiet ranch outside the city, hoping for some peace and space for my horses. I've always been more comfortable around animals than people, so this place felt perfect. The HOA was supposed to be laid back, strict enough to maintain the neighborhood's integrity but nothing overbearing. Or so I thought. Karen Jenkins, though, was different. She wasn't like the other neighbors. She had this aura about her, as if she thought the world should bend to her will. And honestly, it wasn't just her that was the problem. The entire HOA seemed to cater to her whims. It started with the complaints about my horses. "They're too loud," she said one afternoon when she came knocking on my door. Her tone wasn't polite, it was demanding, like she was the queen of the block. I tried to reason with her. "Horses are loud," I said. "They're animals, not pets you keep in a cage." But she wasn't hearing it. And that's when I started noticing the little things. Notices left on my door. Fines for having a too rustic barn. And then came the letters, one after another, accusing me of violating HOA codes that didn't even exist. I ignored them at first. I thought it was a mistake. But the more I looked, the more I realized this wasn't just some misunderstanding. No, Karen had a personal vendetta. One afternoon, as I was in the stable, I heard a sound, a strange, high-pitched spray. I rushed outside and saw it. Karen, spraying something on my horse, Blaze, while he was grazing peacefully. The look on her face was pure satisfaction. "Just a little something to quiet him down," she smirked. And just like that, something inside me snapped. That was just the beginning. What came next was insane. After Karen sprayed my horse, I took Blaze to the vet, and that's when things took a darker turn. The vet ran tests, and it turned out the substance she used was a banned chemical, something used for controlling pests, but definitely not for horses. It wasn't lethal, but it was toxic. I was furious. But the thing that truly set everything in motion was what happened after I confronted Karen. I told her I was reporting her to the authorities, and I did. But Karen wasn't just going to back down. The next few days were a blur of escalating absurdity. First, the HOA fined me for a health and safety violation related to the chemical spray. Then came the threats, anonymous notes on my doorstep, nasty phone calls from HOA members, and even a warning from my own neighbors. "You might want to watch your back," one of them said, looking over his shoulder like I was about to be run out of town. But here's the kicker. One morning, I woke up to find my ranch's water supply had been cut off. No explanation. Just a note from the HOA saying they were enforcing water usage restrictions for the good of the community. They'd reported me to the county for excessive use. An outright lie. I knew Karen was behind this. Things were getting personal, and I wasn't about to let it slide. I had a choice. Fight back or keep taking hits. But I wasn't just going to go quietly. I started gathering evidence. Photos, recordings, witnesses. Every shady move they made, I documented. I was about to take down an entire corrupt system. The real plan would come soon. But first, I had to get my ducks in a row. The tipping point came when the HOA tried to fine me again. This time for something truly ridiculous. Grass too high near the fence. I mean, who were they to decide how my property should look? That was the moment I realized Karen wasn't just a neighborhood nuisance. She was part of something bigger, something systemic. I couldn't just file another complaint or talk to the police. No, It was time for a little finesse. I did my homework. I found out that Karen, along with a few others on the HOA board, had been skimming money from HOA funds. It was nothing major at first, just little accounting errors here and there. But once I started looking deeper, I realized they were funneling money into their personal accounts. They were using their positions to enforce rules selectively, punish neighbors they didn't like, and make life miserable for anyone who stood in their way. I wasn't going to take this lying down. I knew I needed a way to expose them without getting tangled up in a lawsuit or personal retribution. So, I did what any good investigator would do. I started talking to people. I gathered statements from neighbors who had experienced the same bullying from the HOA. I even found a local reporter who was willing to look into the corruption in exchange for a juicy story. I didn't need to go to the authorities just yet. I had something even better. There was a meeting coming up, and I planned to attend with all the evidence I had collected. Karen wouldn't know what hit her. The night of the HOA meeting, I walked in with a calm confidence. The room was filled with familiar faces, most of whom had either been too scared or too apathetic to fight back. But not tonight. Tonight, I was armed with everything I needed to turn the tables. I stood up, making sure to lock eyes with Karen as I spoke. "I have something to share," I said, pulling out the documents I had gathered. Photos, bank statements, emails, everything. It was a full-blown exposé. As I laid out the evidence, I could see Karen's face turn pale. The room was dead silent. I spoke about the corruption, about the fines, the threats, the sabotage. By the time I was done, it was clear. Karen and her crew were finished. I turned to the HOA president, who had been silent the entire time. "Are you going to let this continue?" I asked. The president had no choice but to step down, and by the end of the meeting, a vote was called to dissolve the corrupt board. In one fell swoop, Karen's little empire crumbled. But the real cherry on top? The local authorities started their own investigation into the HOA's financial practices, which led to federal oversight. Karen's smugness faded as she realized the consequences of her actions. No one messes with my horses, or my life, without paying the price. Looking back, it feels surreal. What started as a simple act of petty revenge turned into a full-blown federal investigation. I can't say I'm sorry for what happened. Sometimes things need to be shaken up to get real justice. The lesson? Don't mess with people who are willing to fight for what's right. You never know when something as simple as a horse being loud might end up uncovering something far worse. But also, be careful who you challenge. You might just be poking the wrong bear. So, what do you think? Would you have done the same thing? Or would you have let Karen get away with it? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to share this story if you believe justice served is always worth celebrating. And if you made it this far, comment "Justice served." It's our way of saying we don't let bullies win.